97.3. Call 0845 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC 973. This is London's biggest conversation with Ian Dale at Drive.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 7 here on LBC 97.3. If you haven't been with us for the last 3 hours, you've missed a lot. Where on earth have you been? But I'm glad you've joined us now because we are spending the next hour in the company of the Community Secretary, Eric Pickles, who's here to take your calls. 0845 6060 973 is the number to call if you'd like to ask Eric a question. It seems ages since we've done this, Eric.
I can't believe it. I've been sort of thinking about the glory days when I was on and whether I've been forgotten.
No, not at all. Well, it's good to have you back. I should say we are streaming this on the internet. If you'd like to see us in glorious Technicolor, Eric is waving at the camera now. Just go to lbc.co.uk and you can watch us as well as listen to us. And hopefully you can call in and hear your own voice. 0845 6060 973. Now, before we go to the calls, Eric, let's just have a chat about the GDP figures that came out today.
Really good.
Very encouraging, but was it a bit frosty around the cabinet table this morning with Vince Cable? Didn't seem particularly impressed.
Well, I sat next to Vince this morning. We shared our customary Minto together. He seemed very happy. But I think it's right that we have a degree of caution. People are not going to really feel this, the improvement, until they feel it in their pocket. I mean, if you're part of the people who've got new jobs, have come up with employment benefits, you're going to feel great. But, you know, we've all taken a number of sacrifices in terms of our standard of living to get through this terrible crisis.
It was interesting. We had a caller earlier who really made me think, because he said he didn't think that his life had changed at all over the last 10 years. He said it doesn't matter what government's in power. People on a sort of average income, or maybe a little bit higher than average, don't actually notice changes in GDP rates. It's only people at the bottom and people at the top who are really affected.
I mean, I suppose that there is some truth in that, but if you are at the bottom and you're getting your first chance at a job, it's a wonderful thing. And in order for us to be able to pay for all the things that that gentleman, was it a gentleman? Was it a chap?
What?
That said this to you?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes.
I just didn't want to say.
I was thinking, who's he talking about?
Welcome to my world. But I mean, but all the things that he will use, whether it's the buses, the trains, or whether it's on the road, all these things get paid for with a rise in GDP. Otherwise, we have to borrow, and we know what happens when we overborrow.
We do indeed. I don't know what this tweet means, but Ant says, I hope Eric's manners have improved since his last phone-in.
Oh,
I think some people object to straight-talking politicians.
I think that is. I think I'm entitled to say these things. I mean, I'm from Yorkshire. That's regarded as being norm.
Do you think that Vince Cable had a point there when he said that the recovery isn't even throughout the country? It is a recovery that seems to be based in London and the South East, doesn't it?
No, it isn't. Tua's doing particularly well. Yorkshire's doing very well. Scotland's doing very well, and the Midlands are doing pretty good. One of the fastest growth we did see in Yorkshire. So no, it's not a southeast phenomenon, though obviously London has an economy which, if it wasn't in the United Kingdom, would be big enough to be a country by itself.
We are the California of the United Kingdom.
No. California is the London of America.
Now, there are lots of things that you might like to phone in and ask Eric about over the course of the next 50 minutes or so. He's issued an edict that apparently the EU flag doesn't have to be flown. You might want to ask him about that. You might want to ask him about apostrophes, because if you don't, I will. And what about Arthur Scargill taking advantage of the right to buy scheme? You might have some other questions on the right to buy. 0845 6060 973. Now, would you like to put your headphones on, because we're going to take a call now?
Okay, where are they? Oh,
to your left. No, to your right, as they would be. Mike is in Camberwell. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, hi, guys.
Hi.
Yeah, I just had a question for Eric, really. The government has set itself a very big target with regard to the provision of affordable social housing. I was just wondering how on earth it was going to deliver on its target, because we are at present, I think, falling short of the number of affordable houses we need to build in this country. And I just wondered how Eric was going to attack that.
Well, thank you. There hasn't been a year since, I think, mid-1970s where we haven't actually missed our target. We continue to fall behind. It's been years and years. We need a lot more housing. When I arrived in the department, the level of house building had dropped to the levels of the 1920s. So we had quite a difficult job. Now, actually, we announced at the beginning of the week some additional money to get affordable houses going, particularly in London. One of the curious facts that I'm sure you'll enjoy is, in terms of the number of council houses built, there are two great administrations that have built council houses since the late 1970s. One was under Margaret Thatcher, and one was under the Coalition. We built more council houses in the last 3 years than the Labour Party managed to build in the whole of their 13.
Are you seriously suggesting that under Margaret Thatcher's administration there was a massive council house building scheme?
There was, compared to the Labour Party, what followed. And she built more than the previous Labour government.
Because that's not the perception. People think she sold them all off and didn't replace them.
It certainly isn't a perception, but that happens to be the truth.
So you've said that successive governments haven't met housing targets. How can you be confident that you will break the mould?
Well, I think one of the things that we've managed to do, which has been the goal for most administrations of the last sort of half a century, which is to get some private money into social housing, and we've managed to do that. And we've managed to get £20 billion from the private sector. We've put in £3 billion, a lot of money, and we'd be keen to see social housing built.
Arthur Scargill obviously wanted to take advantage of the right to buy. What did you make of that when it came out in the archives?
I can't begin to describe my happiness. It just seemed to me the revolution was complete. We've even managed to get Arthur, dear come-over Arthur, is at his heart a Thatcherite.
That's almost libelous. Mike, let's go back to you. What would you like to see the government do to meet its targets?
Well, I think obviously there's a tremendous amount of investment that appears to be going on. I think that I suppose one of the things that would be I think helpful, particularly for companies wanting to invest in affordable housing, is to make the planning process a lot more easier and understandable, because I think the Localism Act of 2011 obliged councils to publish all their ideas and thoughts on their tenancy strategies. But when you go onto all the different local council websites, and Eric will probably appreciate this, they all approach this sort of information in different ways. Some of them are hugely complex. Some of them don't hardly mention it at all. And if you're trying to approach these councils with a view to actually building these homes, it's actually quite confusing.
Well, of course, the Mayor is bringing the boroughs together with regard to housing and trying to get a more uniform system right across London. You make a reasonable point, but in order to build social housing, we've also got to see conventional housing built. We've got to ensure people who don't have an enormous sort of nest egg to be able to make that initial deposit. That's why Help to Buy has been so important. But it's about getting confidence back. Interestingly, just let me give this fact because it was drummed into me before I came in. This Christmas, for the first time, production of bricks continued throughout the whole of the Christmas period. That hasn't happened for years.
That goes against the GDP figures, where the construction sector experienced a 0.8% downturn in the last quarter.
But that's a lag. That's a lag. If you look in terms of orders, if you look forward, I think when we see the next quarter, it'll be a different position. But of course, we saw manufacturing going up.
But was that what your spin doctor drummed into you to say during the course of this hour? You haven't been told to say hard-working people at all during the course of the hour.
I know we'll get in long-term economic plan.
Excellent. We look forward to that. 0845 6060 973. If you'd like to ask Eric a question, you can, of course, text your question to 84850, tweet it at LBC973, or email Ian, IAIN, at lbc.co.uk. Howard says, can Eric confirm that he's eaten 6 curries in one go, as per an article in a Sunday paper?
Sadly, no.
No?
No, damn it. I only had a spoonful of each. It was a competition which all these really nice young chefs. I went to a catering college and they prepared this, and there was the cameras, and I kind of knew what was going to happen. It was going to be 6 curry pickles. But I thought, well, I can either, just take a sample and be nice to these young kids, or recognise that sooner or later I was going to get done over. But it was nice to see the Independent come to my defence on this.
Well, that doesn't happen often. Right, more questions after the travel. 0845 6060 973. It's 7:15. In the LBC 97.3 Travel Centre, it's Adam Moore.
Thanks, Ian. M25, first of all, slow clockwise from St Albans at junction 22 all the way along to the M11 at junction 27. That's after a lorry broke down earlier. It's around 30 minutes of delays to get through those roadworks. Long queues on the North Circular, the eastbound side, very slow at Waterworks Corner. The outside lane there is blocked by a collision. Solid queues back to the Crooked Billet interchange. The outside lane's also blocked on the North Circular southbound at the M11 junction at Redbridge after an accident. In Erith, a Bronze Age Way, that's closed northbound after an accident at the Erith roundabout. In Beddington, Croydon Road's blocked, a collision there between Bond Gardens and Rectory Lane. The A40 very slow into town from the Polish War Memorial. That's after reports of an accident just after the Greenford flyover. In Highgate, the A1, the Archway Road, that's queuing into town after an accident which is blocking the inside lane at the Woodman traffic lights. And an earlier accident leaving queues out of town on the A13 from Aspen Way past Canary Wharf out to Movers Lane with around 25 minutes of delays. Keeping London moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC 97.3 Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Save time and money by meeting online from anywhere.
LBC 97.3 Ian Dale at Drive.
With the RAC, keeping you motoring this winter.
One of my tenants hasn't paid his rent. Evicting him is taking forever.
You should have used Alder Martin, Baines & Cuthbert. Their free rent guarantee scheme ensures that if your tenant doesn't pay their rent, you'll get paid by the insurance company, and their solicitors will deal with the eviction for you.
For complete peace of mind, let your property with Alder Martin, Baines & Cuthbert estate agents. Call 0800 888 6688 or visit abc-estates.com.
Westminster, Shad Thames, Chelsea, Lambeth.
Find
St.
your
James's,
perfect buyer or tenant with My London Home.
Arden, Holborn, Pimlico, Waterloo.
Property sales, letting and management specialists in central London.
Southwark, Battersea, City, Kensington, Vauxhall.
My London Home, voted best single office in London and the UK at the Sunday Times Lettings Agency of the Year Awards 2012. My London Home, passionate about property.
The Barclays Premier League action just keeps coming this week live on BT Sport. On Tuesday night, it's all eyes on Anfield as Liverpool host Everton in another explosive Merseyside derby from 7 p.m. Then tune in on Wednesday for another big one, Tottenham at home to Manchester City. Last time Spurs suffered a 6-goal humiliation, but can their new manager get revenge at White Hart Lane? Find out exclusively live on BT Sport. £12 a month on the Sky digital satellite platform, or free with BT Broadband.
UK residential customers only. Online requires 400 kilobits per second. BT Broadband for new customers from £10 a month plus £15.99 line rental. 12-month contract and terms apply. Sky platform requires 12-month contract, and if you don't have BT Broadband, a £15 activation fee.
LBC 97.3 Ian Dale at Drive.
18 minutes past 7 here on LBC 97.3. You're listening to Ian Dale at Drive, and it's Call Pickles today. Your chance to question Eric Pickles, Cabinet Minister, Community Secretary, Local Government Secretary, about anything you like, really. The number to call, 0845 6060 973. Obviously, a large part of Eric's responsibilities concerns local government, so if there's something that your council's doing that you're not particularly happy about, he's the man to talk to, although being a believer in localism, I guess, you would say nothing to do with me, Gov.
That's about right, but...
Yeah, well, we'll try. Chris is in Hemel Hempstead. Hello, Chris.
Good evening. Mr. Pickles, I thought I might as well come to the top. I spoke to our local council and they suggested getting onto our MPs since they say there's nothing they can do about the problem. And then I thought, phone you. Now, what it's about is there's a huge increase in mobility scooters on our pavements. It really has increased an awful lot. And the problem I have, I'm visually impaired, I have a guide dog, and it's the speed that they actually travel at. And I was wondering, is there anything you can do to limit in pedestrianised areas to walking pace? I don't see why they should be able to speed along. I mean, we've had accidents, guide dogs have had guide dogs hit by them, and it's really becoming a big problem. I think obviously people need mobility scooters, but now it seems some people are getting them more as just because they can charge around on them. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, Chris, I think you've got a point in that. I mean, there are undoubtedly more of them about. I would say that's a good thing because it means that more people can actually be mobile and go out of their house. Eric?
Well, one whizzed by me the other day, and I looked around, and the chap had put a couple of Ferrari stickers on his mobility scooter. And I've kind of decided when I get old and decrepit, I'm going to get one. And I'm going to form a gang. We're going to become sort of hell granddads and terrorise. But the truth is, in terms of it, it's a good thing people get around. But mobility scooters have to be used responsibly. And they have to go at a reasonable pace. And most people, of course, use them responsibly.
Well, I suppose you could regulate them and sort of put speed limiters on them, which sounds ridiculous when I say it, but you could, I suppose.
That's because it is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay. So you're not really going to be able to help Chris very much.
I'm really sorry, but I think basically remonstrate ones are going a little bit too fast.
Okay. Thank you very much. Tony is in Moorgate. Hello, Tony.
Hi, good evening, Ian. Thank you for calling back. Hello, Mr. Pickles.
Hey, how are you?
I recognise your voice, Tony. Now, you...
It's a regular?
No, Tony phoned in, I think it was yesterday, and he raised something which I wasn't able to give him an answer to, so I said we'd call him back today so you could. Because that's the kind of person I am. Tony, go ahead.
Mr. Pickles, I'm a small operator for a private hire company, and my license is up for renewal. During Labour's time, I got a letter from my local council planning department for free saying I did not need planning permission. Now, under your watch, you say I got to apply for a lawful development certificate at the price of £400. Can you tell me how the council can justify £400 for a letter that I should have got free?
Now, the reason that he was phoning in yesterday was we were doing an hour on deregulation, and David Cameron had made a speech trumpeting the fact that the government had got rid of 800 regulations, and yet it seems that you have imposed this regulation.
No, I suspect it's the local council. We've been deregulating this. But basically, there's been a number of deemed permissions, but in order to establish, you need to get a certificate to say, in certain circumstances, actually I've been lawfully using this. Now, it would depend enormously in terms of how long the gentleman had been using this, how long he could establish that he'd been using it for a particular purpose. I don't really have enough information, but I tell you what, if you care to write into me at the Department of Communities and Local Government, mention your name because you're influential, and I'll give him a definitive response.
We are going to make sure that Tony is put in touch with you. Tony, stay on the line and we'll give you the details there. Just on deregulation, Ken Clark has apparently poured scorn on suggestions that heroic British ministers are resisting a tide of red tape from Brussels. He says it's a myth that a flow of European Union regulation is being forced on the UK against the wishes of the government. Is he right?
Well, I don't get many European legislation through my bed. All I can tell you is that we have a rule of 1 in, 2 out. That last year we were running on 7 out, 1 in. And at our peak we were running...
So you mean for every new regulation, 7 disappear?
And at our peak, when we were at our most ideologically strong, it was 1 in for 11 out.
So how many regulations have you got rid of since you've been Communities and Local Government Secretary? And give us a couple of examples of the kind of thing that you've got rid of.
Well, one of the things I did get rid of was the bunting regulations.
The what?
The bunting regulations. There was a rule with regard to the height and the size of bunting. And I was wanting to do street parties, and the bunting regulation and the bunting police were getting in my way. They go round there and say, can't have that, it's swallowtails. We know swallowtails in this part of the country. And for 4 years now, you have been free from regulation and safety.
Well, you've only been in power 3 years.
All right then. Was it really? It's 4 coming up. 3.5 years. Forgive me. Oh,
it just seems like 4.
Yeah, you put me in my place now. I lost my thread. No, it's come back. But you've been completely without protection. So no small child has become wrapped up in bunting. No dog has choked to death on bunting. And we've managed to have lots of these events. Occasionally bunting falls down, but nothing happens.
How was their bunting? Was that EU rules?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if it was?
But it wasn't.
But you recall I just said right at the very beginning that Europe, though it does occasionally creep towards us, and we had these environment impact assessments which were kind of been bedeviling us, and at one time they were wanting to do it for everything. You know, if you're going to sort of build a chemical works, I can kind of understand that, but it was going to be on everything. So we have managed to push those back. But there were lots of other colleagues in Europe who wanted to pull it back.
And what's this thing about saying that people don't have to fly the EU flag?
Well, there was a regulation that said on a day in May that we had to fly prominently outside our building and outside every government building the EU flag. They wanted to make it so that it had to be permanently up. Now, we objected to that, renegotiated, and now we only have to display the EU flag in a room inside Eland House. And
so which broom cupboard are you doing that in?
Well, we found, remember, there used to be the Prescott Arms, which was a drinking den right at the bottom. And if you want to go in there, providing you can get the key, you will be able to see the EU flag flying prominently next to a portrait of Lord Prescott.
Next time I come in, I'll make sure that I do that. I think we should get to another call, don't you, before this descends into farce. Colin is in Bromley. Hello, Colin.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening. Hi, what's your question?
Mr. Pickles, good evening to you.
Hey, good evening.
How are we getting on with the regulation to curb local councils from misusing CCTV to persecute motorists?
I'm just about to issue the guidelines. I'm just about to...
This is so people can have 5 minutes free parking? Is that what you...
Well, we're about to do a whole load of things. We're working with Transport to ensure that people... Currently, people have a 5-minute leeway, and I want to give them slightly more than that. We went out
slightly more.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think 10 minutes or 15 minutes is unreasonable. I don't think it should be sort of like some elaborate sort of Japanese game show where you've got to hit the exact minute you've got to be there. Oh, I'm very sorry, you're 30 seconds over. I think, and I'd like people to be able to, where it isn't on a junction where it's causing nobody a problem, where people can just pop in, get a paper.
But that's very subjective, isn't it? As to what I might think isn't a problem, a traffic warden might well.
But I think it's relying on people exercising common sense. We're suggesting that people should be able to review the parking restrictions. Some of them make enormous sense. You want to be able to ensure that junctions are clear. You want to be able to ensure that schools are clear. You want to ensure where there's an accident black spot. But by and large, we seem to have looked towards income generation rather than getting decent traffic flow.
Would you like to pay tribute to Lambeth Council for what they're doing? I know it's not something that you're accustomed to doing, but we did a phone-in on this on Friday. They've actually instructed their wardens to use their common sense and give people, I think it's 5 minutes leeway, and the number of tickets that they've issued has been cut by a quarter. So
that's good. I mean,
bully for Lambeth, eh?
I mean, bully for Lambeth, and the 5 minutes is what people are supposed to give. You're supposed to give 5 minutes, but often that isn't the case. I think the next logical thing is to use traffic wardens to get traffic flowing.
Well, we've got lots more calls to come. 0845 6060 973 if you'd like to ask Eric a question. What about bin collections? They are always a source of great controversy up and down the country. We've talked a bit about the Help to Buy scheme. We've talked a little bit about planning. Of course, fire services are still a big issue. Are there fire strikes planned for February? I'm not quite sure. There aren't any.
No.
It's unusual, it has to be said. But those talks
we met with the unions, or rather, my minister met with the unions today.
And how did that go?
Well, I think, in truth, there's a will, I think, to be able to be accommodating. I think what we really need is, a commitment for non-strikes.
Because there doesn't seem to be a lot of trust between the two sides. Whenever we talk about this, and I mean, Brandon Lewis talks a good game, but then a lot of firemen, indeed, but there's a lot of firefighters come onto the programme and they just don't believe what he's telling them.
Well, I mean, the offer's a very good one. They were concerned about people being retired on grounds of lack of fitness. And we've set down a whole series of measures that protect them, a whole series of measures to help that process, better than what's been offered in Scotland. And we just really need to work out the fine print. But there's a willingness to be obliging. Nobody wants to put firefighters on the scrap heap after years of loyal service.
Well, if you're a firefighter, if you'd like to talk to Eric Pickles, 0845 6060 973. Rupert says, Ian, as you're doing a live web feed, you would have thought you'd wear a tie and sit with a good posture. Well, I knew this web malarkey was a mistake. Yeah. You're listening to LBC 97.3. It's Ian Dale at Drive. It's 7:31. I'm sitting up straight. Peter Ferris has the news headlines.
One of London's largest investment banks has told LBC 97.3 it's deeply saddened after a member of staff fell from the roof of its headquarters in Canary Wharf. Technology expert Gabriel McGee, who was 39, had worked at JP Morgan for 10 years. Met Police are not treating his death as suspicious. 5 men have been found guilty of murdering a 16-year-old boy who was attacked by a gang in Pimlico. Hani Abu El-Khair was stabbed more than 20 times with swords and knives on an estate last January. The men will be sentenced on Friday. The Foreign Office is denying the head of GCHQ, Sir Ian Lobban, is standing down as a result of controversies over its and the American NSA's activities. 53-year-old Mr Lobban is leaving his post after 5.5 years in charge of the Electronic Intelligence Gathering Agency. The government is dismissing Labour's warning that the economic recovery is being led by house price inflation and might not last. Gross domestic product increased by 1.9% during the whole of 2013, the best growth in a calendar year since 2007. The Liberal Democrat Business Secretary, Vince Cable, is also warning the economic recovery could prove to be a short-term bounce if it's based on a housing boom. Hundreds of banking job losses have been announced. Lloyds Banking Group is cutting more than 1,000 positions and outsourcing about 300 roles, it says, are part of plans announced 3 years ago. Meanwhile, Barclays is reportedly to shed hundreds of investment banking jobs on top of around 1,700 lost in the division last year. The FTSE 100 ended the day at 65.72, up 21 points.
LBC 97.3 Business.
With cyberstreetwise.com. Find out about antivirus software for smart, safe businesses.
And London's weather, a wet evening and night with rain or showers. It could fall as snow on higher ground. Breezy and cold, 5 degrees the overnight low, 7 Celsius now in Fleet Street. This is LBC 97.3. The time is 7:33.
From the LBC 97.3 Travel Centre, I'm Adam Moore. On the M25, very slow clockwise from the A1M at junction 23 all the way along to the M11 at junction 27 after a lorry broke down earlier. At Falconwood, the A2 East Rochester Way, that's closed towards town after a collision at the Falconwood interchange. The solid queues on the North Circular eastbound all the way from the Great Cambridge interchange along to the M11 after two separate collisions. The first one's at Waterworks Corner. The outside two lanes are blocked there. The other one's at the M11 junction. 5 cars have had a collision there in the outside lane. Long delays of close to an hour now on the sensors. At Beddington, Croydon Road is blocked. A collision there between Bond Gardens and Rectory Lane. And in Highgate, the A1 Archway Road, that's queuing into town after an accident which is blocking the inside lane at the Woodman traffic lights. Keeping London moving, your next travel updates in 15 minutes.
LBC 97.3 Travel
with gotomeeting.co.uk. Stay inside and avoid delays by holding your meetings online.
LBC 97.3 Ian Dale at Drive
With racshop.co.uk. Save 40% on selected winter motoring essentials.
Some people's smiles light up a room, and yours could too. If you lack the confidence to smile, find it hard to enjoy your food, or have been told you can't have implants, talk to a TDC implant centre. A full set of implant teeth in one day, or a single tooth in just 1 hour. And you avoid much of the discomfort associated with traditional implants. So to eat what you want and laugh when you want, call TDC Implant Centres on 0800 012 2086 or see smileinaday.co.uk.
An outstanding new artist. G. Liu, Piano Reflections. Out now at amazon.co.uk.
The Barclays Premier League action just keeps coming this week live on BT Sport. On Tuesday night, it's all eyes on Anfield as Liverpool host Everton in another explosive Merseyside derby from 7 p.m. Then tune in on Wednesday for another big one, Tottenham at home to Manchester City. Last time Spurs suffered a 6-goal humiliation, but can their new manager get revenge at White Hart Lane? Find out exclusively live on BT Sport. £12 a month on the Sky digital satellite platform, or free with BT Broadband.
UK residential customers only. Online requires 400 kilobits per second. BT Broadband for new customers from £10 a month plus $15.99 line rental. 12-month contract and terms apply. Sky platform requires 12-month contract, and if you don't have BT Broadband, a £15 activation fee.
Being a key holder for a business can be a worry. You're called out of hours because the alarm's going off. You never know what you're going to find. Plus, you've had the inconvenience of an interrupted night's sleep. So why have the hassle? Ward Security's business key holding services less than you think, providing immediate response and peace of mind without involving you or your employees out of hours. Don't compromise what's important. Talk to Ward Security. See wardsecuritykeyholding.com.
LBC 97.3 Ian Dale at Drive.
7:36 here on LBC 97.3. You might like to switch on to the LBC website, lbc.co.uk, because you can actually watch us as well as listen to us. When I say us, I'm talking about myself and Eric Pickles, the Community Secretary, who's with me until 8 o'clock taking your calls. 0845 60 60 973. We don't normally do birthday wishes, but Anthony says, can you get Eric to say happy birthday to my mum, who's 48 today? We're watching on the webcam.
Happy birthday, Mum. Hope you have a good day, and hope your children have brought you a really expensive present.
Right, let's go to your calls. 0845 60 60 973. Paul is in Kentish Town. Hello, Paul.
Oh, hello. Good evening, gentlemen. My question is around a policy that was introduced by Mr. Pickles, which basically allows the owners of office buildings to be able to convert them into residential buildings without planning permission. Previously, an owner of such a building would have to get planning permission from the local authority. My issue is that I'm a founder member of a neighbourhood forum in Kentish Town, and having spoken with many residents and businesses in our area, one of the two pressing needs that we find in our area is that there's not enough appropriate employment space for local businesses. And what we've found is that this policy that Mr. Pickles' department introduced has basically pulled the rug from our efforts to try and increase the amount of employment space in our area. What we're finding is that owners of office buildings are actually turfing out existing occupants, existing businesses, and in order to be able to sell them for residential use.
Well, when you say turfing out, you mean not renewing their leases?
Correct.
Slight difference, though, there, isn't there?
Well,
and it's kind of amazing that it's not been going for very long that their leases should be coming suddenly to an end. This has been a phenomenal success. We've managed to get affordable housing, social houses in the capital, and it's about redundant office space.
Well, I can
and your councils will give an opportunity to say, designate those areas within your borough that you don't want this to happen.
Okay,
and they've all done that.
Okay,
so it's their decision.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, go on, Paul.
I can assure you that we've lost thousands of square feet of occupied office space, and I can show you through around Kentish Town to show you that's happened. In relation to Camden Council, they applied for 3 areas of degradation to be exempted from these changes, and that only one of them was permitted. 2 of them were rejected. So I really do ask you to have another look at this legislation and prevent business space which is currently occupied stop being, turned over to residential accommodation.
Well, I don't find you convincing, because I don't believe in the very short time we've been in that many people's leases have come to an end. I think what's happened is a number of redundant buildings have come to the end of the use, and I think it's a wonderful thing that we're able to get low-cost housing into the capital. People are crying out for housing, and this has been a pretty effective way of doing so.
But, I mean, Paul makes an interesting point, because if there are people who have perfectly good office buildings that they may have all their leases coming to an end, but they think they can get more money from developing them for housing, they're obviously going to do that. And so he's right, there might be some buildings that do fall under
Well, I'm
this.
saying that of course might happen.
But it wasn't meant to happen, was it?
Well, we do need to rationalise a lot of office space within the capital. We do need to rationalise it right across the country. And it's pointless having office buildings empty, and we've seen that in London, and we felt this was a way in which we can get things. People saying, don't build on the green belt, build on brownfield sites. And this is a way in which we can get affordable housing into the capital.
But what was it originally aimed at? Maybe high streets where there's lots of empty shops, and we all know that the high streets are going to have to change over the next 5 or 10 years because a lot of the shops just can't afford the rents.
And of course the nature of housing, nature of those high streets are changing. Yeah, sure, we are wanting to see residential accommodation in high streets. One, because it makes the high street more human, more
right,
normal.
Paul, I'm going to give you a final word.
Thank you very much, Ian. I'll just give you one example. Right in the centre of Camden, we've got a 12-storey office building. It's completely occupied by the British Transport Police headquarters, and the owners of that building have just put an application in for it to be turned over for residential use.
Right, we hear what you say. Terry is in Streatham. Hello, Terry.
Hi. My call's about boom cars.
What?
A boom car. It's an American term for them.
What
it's
are
those
they?
cars, they come by and they've got a huge stereo.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, now
They go down the high street of Brentwood every Saturday night with regularity.
Absolutely.
Usually BMWs.
Well, they're usually quite nice cars. I see them as like the equivalent. When we were lads, we used to put playing cards in the back spokes of the wheel. I think that was rather smart, making that clicking. Anyway, late summer 2012, we were having real problems. 30 of these cars, 30 events were happening every hour.
Like a rally.
And they'd be coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be coming through at all times, late at night, early in the morning. So I tried to do something with the police, with the noise people. I even rang the noise people for the Notting Hill Carnival, thinking they'd know. The point is, there's no laws relating to moving vehicles and the amount of noise they make. Okay,
so you can't ring your local council's noise abatement officer or whatever they might be called, because they do have them.
Not unless it's parked.
Not unless it's parked.
Yeah, I did. If it's parked, fine. But if it's moving, they can't do anything, nor can the police. And that seems a big hole in, antisocial behaviour legislation. You've got the laws now to fine somebody if a piece of litter comes out of a car. It would seem fairly easy to establish if you can hear a vehicle from, say, 75 feet away, which I think is what they do in the States, because the States walked into this and they've got a real problem with them there. So you could fine the car, you could even confiscate the equipment. what they do in countries like Germany
I think you
and
kind
other
of make a very interesting
the litter
point.
stays on the floor, and obviously the music is constant.
I think he makes an interesting point. I don't know how widespread this is. I mean, I've been annoyed by people at sort of traffic lights with enormous sounding sort of stereos in the back of the car. I don't think so.
No,
You're far too well dressed for that.
It was ABBA.
Yeah. Oh, it might have been ABBA. Now I think about it. No, I mean, Guy makes an interesting point. I'm going to ask around about this. I'll talk to Patrick McLaughlin, the Transport Secretary, about this. I'll say it was raised here.
You can't palm it off on him.
I am palming it off on him.
Environmental noise legislation comes under your department, doesn't
transport's moving because it actually solves a sort of 40-year problem that always when you're sent out in politics with the loudspeaker ban. I remember the agent saying, "For God's sake, don't speak when it's stationary."
I used to love doing that at election times. Do you remember in 1992 there was the Conservatives had an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical theme which we all were given to play blasting out of our cars.
No, 92 he rearranged. I think it was Purcell.
It was, and it was fabulous. I've even got it on my iPod nowadays. But I mean, that was actually a noise hazard as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. My problem is I found kids would chase you thinking it was an ice cream van.
Apostrophes. You've been in the news for Cambridge City Council doesn't want to use apostrophes on their road signs. Well, if you believe in localism, shouldn't you let them just do what they want?
Well, they made the mistake of blaming government guidance, and there is no such government guidance. It just seemed to me that if we can split the atom, if we can decode the double helix, if we can put a man on the moon, surely there is a computer in Cambridge, which is an internationally award-winning place that can actually demonstrate and differentiate an apostrophe.
I would have thought so. 15 more minutes to go. 0845 6060 973 if you'd like to ask Eric Pickles a question. But first, I bring you the glad tidings, and Eric, you'll be interested in this, that Malcolm Bruce is the new deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats. He beat off strong competition from Laurelly Burt and Gordon Birtwistle.
But isn't he retiring?
He's standing down at the next election. They do it differently in the Liberal Democrats, it seems.
Well, congratulations to Malcolm.
I think we should congratulate him.
Well done.
We will hopefully maybe have him on the programme tomorrow and talk about that.
We should.
Rupert on Twitter says, he's taken a picture from the webcam. He says, it looks like you're about to grope Eric Pickles. Are you trying to reenact a Liberal Democrat scandal? I think not. It's 7:45. Adam Moore is in the LBC 97.3 Travel Centre.
Thanks, Ian. At Falconwood, the A2 East Rochester Way is closed towards town after an accident at the Falconwood interchange. There's solid queues on the North Circular eastbound, all the way from the Great Cambridge interchange along to the M11 after two separate collisions. The first one's at Waterworks Corner, where 3 lanes are blocked now. The other's at the M11 junction. 5 cars there have had a collision blocking the outside lane. Long delays, well over an hour to get through all of those queues. At Bennington, Croydon Road's blocked. A collision there between Bond Gardens and Rectory Lane. The A40 queuing into town between Hillingdon and the Greenford flyover because of an earlier collision. And the A13 still slow going out of town from Aspen Way towards Movers Lane after an earlier accident. Keeping London moving, your next travel updates in 30 minutes.
LBC 97.3 Travel.
With GoToMeeting. Save time and money by meeting online from anywhere.
LBC 97.3 Ian Dale at Drive.
With RAC Accident Care. Taking the strain should the worst happen this winter.
Samantha just spelt Mississippi and won the national spelling contest. But all eyes are on Justine, who's just been to Dubai with her parents. Did you know that people in Dubai express joy like this? Nobody here did. Travel yourself interesting with the Expedia sale and collect double nectar points. Expedia.co.uk. People-shaped travel. Subject to availability, sale and double nectar points ends 28th of February 2014. Terms and conditions apply. See expedia.co.uk for details. Atoll protected.
Life is ever-changing. We have kids, take out mortgages. We change careers, move away, stay together or drift apart. Changes in your personal circumstances could affect your life insurance policy. When was the last time you reviewed yours? At Crystal Financial Solutions, we work hard to find the lowest premiums, depending on where you are in life. For an initial free policy review, visit crystalfs.co.uk. That's crystalfs.co.uk.
When you need more space,
think creatively.
What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
Cold weather is bad news for chips because they're more likely to crack, costing you your pricey insurance excess for a new windscreen. But a repair by Autoglass saves hassle and expense. And usually if you're fully comp, it's free for you.
Call Autoglass on 0800 234 234 or visit autoglass.co.uk.
Autoglass repair, Autoglass replace.
LBC 97.3. Coming up at 8, Clive Bull.
Leaflets have been arriving on doormats across England informing you of care.data, a vast database of our medical records which will not just be shared within the NHS but with research charities and pharmaceutical companies in an anonymised version. Are you happy to be part of this or have you chosen to opt out?
London's biggest conversation with Clive Bull this evening at 8. LBC 97.3.
Well, that's Clive Bull coming up in 11 minutes' time. And, of course, Duncan Barks follows Clive at 10. Now, I say lots of time. We've got 11 minutes to ask Eric Pickles some more questions. 0845 6060 973. Before we do that, though, we're going to do a sort of quick fire round of emails. So sort of fairly crisp answers, if you will, Eric. And by the way, if you just tuned in, you can also tune into the LBC website, lbc.co.uk, and you can watch us through our studio webcams if you would like to. Andy says, Ian, politics is getting very confusing. You have Eric there in voice only, sounding traditional Labour, and we have Tristram Hunt sounding like a Tory.
He's very posh, is Tristram.
Well, he's too posh to come on my programme. We keep asking him and he doesn't come on.
Yeah, you are a bit more rent though, aren't you?
This is from Papa, who says, I would like to ask Eric about the qualifying period for council tenants reduction from 5 to 3 years as promised by the Chancellor last year. What is the situation now? Because it seems the government has abandoned the policy.
No. We'll legislate on it.
Martin says, please ask Eric where the infrastructure support for the new housing will come from.
We're putting in billions of pounds on infrastructure, and that's a very good thing because it's quite right. We need infrastructure for housing, but of course, if you are converting offices, if it's right in the centre, the infrastructure's there.
This is a bit of a longer email, so I'm only going to read out the main question from Harshi, who says, please ask Eric to define affordable housing, i.e. how much. Bearing in mind the average wage is 25,000, 10 times that is 250,000. So how many times an income should we borrow in order to buy a house?
Affordable housing is housing that's below market rent.
And Hazel says, will a garden city still be built in Yalding Paddock Wood following the floods?
No.
Well, you can't get much more categoric than that. But, of course, that is...
we were never going to build one there. There was never a possibility. It was an old Labour scheme.
But there are too many houses built on floodplains, aren't there? Would you veto big housing
the amount that's actually built on... well, if we did that, then we'd probably have to abandon the studio. I mean, we're in a floodplain right now.
Are we really?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they have the right at the end. Meg Greenwich, those big gates, is to stop.
I wondered what they were.
Yeah.
Right, let's go to your calls. Addy is in Walton-on-Thames. Hello, Addy.
Hello, Ian.
Hi.
Hello, Eric. Good evening.
Hi.
My question here is: my council, Embridge Council, are raising the price for parking from April. And I'm just trying to find out, what justification they have for that. Are they making a loss on the current parking scheme, or are they trying to make more money? Because it's getting harder for people to go to work. It costs us about £5.50 every day to pay for parking.
Well, this is something that the local council has to justify. Before the coalition came in, there was a directive from Labour ministers to increase car parking charges. Now it's up to local councils what they charge, and they are responsible, they are accountable to the local electorate. That's what localism means. So I would get onto them and get them to justify it.
A lot of councils are actually bringing in rather more innovative parking policies now to encourage people to come into town centres. Do you want to see a lot more of that happen? Well, I suppose you obviously want to see a lot more of that happening, but how can you encourage councils to do that?
It just makes sense. Or we've encouraged them insofar that they get the benefits of economic growth. If they bring things in and the amount of business rate goes up, they get to keep it or get to keep half of it. They've got a responsibility to ensure that their town centres are vibrant and exciting places to be in. And, just continually milking the motorist, it might make your chief executive happy, but it isn't going to make your shopkeepers.
Right, let's go to Graham in Bromley. Hello, Graham.
Oh, hi Ian. Hi, Eric.
Hiya.
I live in Bromley, and my local council, in the last 3 years, has increased its balance sheet from about 130 million to 209 million pounds. Now, we're supposed to have gone through one of the most difficult economic times that there is, yet my local council has increased its balance sheet by over 70 million pounds, most of which is in short-term investments, cash and cash equivalents. And I suspect this is repeated up and down the country with many, many councils. And they've got a lot of that money invested at something like 1.5%, 2% in the bank, and that money should either be put to good use or returned from the people where it came.
Yep.
And I wondered what you thought about councils holding cash through what is supposed to be one of the most difficult financial times that we've experienced.
Yeah, local councils have got to pay attention to their liquidity. They will have investments to try and ensure that in bad times they can use it. But it is true that council balances have shot up. They've shot up this year by, I think, an extra £2 billion. So it's,
£2 billion?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Not Bromley itself, but across the piece. And so this is a time to be using balances. This is a time to be offering to people a council tax freeze. Some investments they have may well relate to their pension fund. So we expect them to take a reasoned, balanced approach. As they say in the adverts, this programme, sometimes investments will go up and sometimes they will go down. So they've got to invest for the future, but I'll certainly have a look at their balance sheet.
Graham, what would you like to see these councils do with the money?
Well, I guess public accounting is quite a complex beast, but it just doesn't seem right to me, having run a company in previous years, that you can increase your balance sheet by such an amount of money. And most of that money is just sitting in an investment account, earning 1.5%, 2%. And when you speak to them about that, they're all very proud that yes, our investments generate £2 million a year, which keeps your council tax bill down. Well, hang about, dig into the capital, boys, and you can freeze my council tax for the next 20 years. Thank you very much.
Graham?
And we are, of course, asking councils to divest themselves of a lot of their land in order to generate income.
Patricia is in Rickmansworth. Hello, Patricia.
Oh, hello. I've just turned the radio on. I know it's very late, but I haven't heard the rest of the conversation. I just wanted to ask if the rail freight is going ahead in St Albans.
I'm planning minister. I look at these things in a quasi-judicial way. I don't think I'll be taking that particular decision myself, but anything I'd say will be judicial reviewable, so I'm sorry I have to evade answering the question.
And that's one I can't really press him on, Patricia, because he would get himself into great trouble if he gave any opinion on that at all. But one opinion that Eric can give is on Biscuitgate, which I think we did talk about the first time that you came onto this programme, but it's reared its ugly head again because it has been revealed that spending in your department on biscuits has gone up from £13,000 to £57,000 in 2013.
No, I don't recognise any of those figures. The figure was £76,000, and that's down from what Labour was spending. That represents just 17% of what Labour. And basically, the rules are that if we've got people coming in, they've travelled more than the meetings for longer than 4 hours, and people have come in, that we give them a cup of tea. We give them a cup of tea and something to eat. But ministers aren't involved in this at all.
What's your favourite biscuit?
I'm not allowed biscuits anymore.
But you still have a favourite one, don't you?
Yeah, I'm keeping it to myself.
Garibaldi?
No.
Ginger nut?
No, I'm not telling you.
No. Well, I can tell you something. I can break some news to you that if you weren't here, you could be at the Dodds Parliamentary Awards.
I turned them down to come here.
Well, you may wish you hadn't now, because you've won an award.
What for?
You've won the Dodds Social Media Moment of 2013. You've got 45 seconds to tell me what that was.
I couldn't be more proud. It's been the public has been wonderful. It has been quite a journey, and it's a picture of me tucking into a bowl of lettuce and some croutons. I'm delighted to be the picture boy now, the poster boy of healthy living, and I intend to celebrate this by going out and having a kebab.
I couldn't really disagree with that. Well, Eric, we will be seeing you in a few weeks' time for another edition of Call Pickles. I will be back tomorrow at 4 here on LBC 97.3. We have the LBC Parliament tomorrow. We're going to be joined by Saida Varzi, Baroness Varzi, who is a minister in Eric's department and also a minister in the Foreign Office. We're also going to be joined by Ben Summerskill, who's recently, this week, announced his resignation as head of Stonewall, and also David Wooding, the political editor of The Sun. He's an associate editor of The Sun. He's going to be here too, so a very busy hour tomorrow. Coming up now is a very busy Clive Bull.
Thank you, Ian. And after the news, leaflets have been arriving on doormats across England informing you of care.data, which is a vast database of our medical records, which are not just going to be shared within the NHS, but with research charities and pharmaceutical companies in an anonymous version. Are you happy about being part of that, or have you chosen to opt out? 0845 6060 973. And after 9, it's your medical and health questions, and Dr. Sneh Kempker joins me in the studio. The number you need, 0845 6060 973.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. This is LBC 97.3.
It's 8 o'clock. Good evening, I'm Simon Conway. The Coalition claims today's GDP figures are another sign that its long-term economic plan is working. Overall growth in 2013 was 1.9%, the first time there's been 4 consecutive quarters of growth since 2007. But Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Danny Alexander, is telling LBC 97.3 there's no room for complacency.
There's more work for us to do, a lot more work for us to do. Firstly, to stick to the plan that is underpinning this recovery, and to work to make sure that the things that we're doing to support manufacturing industry, to support house building and construction, that those things come through to deliver the sort of balanced recovery we need.
Labour has welcomed the figures, but Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Catherine Jameson, has told us for many people it won't make a difference.
This recovery is not being felt by many hundreds of thousands of people across the country who are seeing their costs.
Abu El-Khair died last January after he was attacked by up to 10 people with swords and knives while he was walking through an estate. The 5 men who've been found guilty will be sentenced at the Old Bailey on Friday. One of London's largest investment banks has told LBC 97.3 it's deeply saddened after a member of staff fell from the roof of its headquarters in Canary Wharf. LBC 97.3's Vicky Etchells has been finding out more.
Gabrielle McGee had worked for JP Morgan for the last 10 years and was Vice President in Client Investment Bank Technology. Just after 8 this morning, he fell from the roof of the bank's headquarters in Canary Wharf onto the 9th floor. Police aren't treating the